Welcome back to the Divijs Den podcast, episode 111. Those are angel numbers, in case you didn't know. This weird thing's been happening to me where I've been looking at my phone every couple hours. I mean, I'm always on my phone, but I'll be looking at my phone and it's like 444, 555, 111, 222. I'm seeing all the angel numbers. I don't know what you're doing, God, but I know you're working some magic. You know, my whole goal with this show is I want to understand the human experience from different perspectives, all types of people, right? And so, you know, I was praying to God and I asked him, I said, you know, who do you want me to have on the podcast next? I don't know who to have on. And immediately my cousin, Jathan Buckrew, came to mind. And I'm so honored to be, you know, sitting next to him and to have a dialogue with him and understand his, you know, perspective on life and the things that he's up to. And I think you guys are really going to learn a lot from this episode. So I want to welcome our guest. He is the Vice President of Accessibility or Vice President Accessibility Lead at JP Morgan Chase & Co. He's an information technology consultant, graduated from Penn State University and the University of Phoenix, and he's from Cypress, California. It's my cousin, Jathan Buckrew. What's up, brother?
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. How you feeling today?
Awesome.
I love it, man. I'm super excited. You know, it's funny. I was telling this to you in the car. You know, you and I see each other when we're at these family parties. Like, we get to kind of interact, but it's always like, hey, hello, like, how are you? And we'll make small talk because we're, you know, surrounded by hundreds of Indian people drinking and singing. So it gets a little distracting. So I'm super, honestly, just grateful that you're here. And I'm excited to just dive in and learn more about you and everything you're up to. Jathan, I really just want to understand, first off, just a little bit about you, bro. So if we could just start, like, can you walk me through a day in your life? Like, when you wake up, like, what goes down?
Well, so I wake up, decide what clothes I'm going to wear for the day, go keep them in the bathroom, go brush my teeth, get a cup of coffee or tea, have some breakfast, do my workout. I have an exercise bike at home that I use. And then after I do that for an hour, after that, go take a shower and then start working.
Got it. And then, so, okay, interesting. And when you say you're a vice president accessibility lead, can you break that down for me? Because I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what that actually means, but it sounds really cool. And I'm sure it's very impressive.
Yeah, so at Chase, we are required to conform to the to adhere to the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, which is a law that began in 1990 that says that public places have to accommodate people with disabilities. And so what I do is I, on a daily basis, work with different product teams at JP Morgan to help make sure that they are making their digital products and services accessible. So that would be like any websites that we have, our mobile apps, making sure that people with disabilities who use assistive technology, such as screen readers like I do. I am totally blind, by the way. I have been since birth. So people like us can use the company's websites and mobile apps just like anyone else can.
Super cool, man. So your job is actually surrounded around improving products for people that potentially have a similar disability to you. Is that right?
Yeah. It could be similar disabilities, but really any kind of disability. It could be someone with a hearing impairment, someone with a mobility disability, it could be speech impediment, any kind of thing.
Very interesting. I was asking you this in the car because, you know, after I picked you up, your iPhone was making these, you know, noises, and then your watch was kind of going off in a very, I think it was reading some voiceovers to you. And I was like, what is this noise? Like, what's happening? And you kind of explained it to me that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have your watch set up to do a voiceover of, or like navigate you through what you're doing on your phone or your watch, but it reads it to you at 100 times the speed of a normal voice. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so by default, it's, by the way, I use a screen reader, for those people who don't know, on iOS called VoiceOver. It's in the accessibility settings on your phone or your tablet, whatever you have. Anyone can turn it on and start using it. So, and someone who has visual disabilities, such as myself, can use the phone and interact with the operating system and any apps that I download, just like anyone else can. So, and And yeah, by default, it's at a slow speed, but I am someone who likes quick, efficient access to information. So I speed it up, and that takes some getting used to. But I've been using this stuff for like almost 30 years. So
Yeah.
for me, it's no big deal.
Are you able to, I don't know if you can do this, and if you can't, it's okay, but are you able to play into the microphone your watch and like the speed at which it speaks? Like, is there a way to show an example to the
Sure.
audience?
So this is the watch face on the Apple Watch.
Just hold it up a little bit more. Yeah, there you go.
So those are my rings. That's a sunset, UV index, and then I can go. I just got a notification from my Ring doorbell, so it's reading that. I can. These are the different options it's reading as I navigate. So I can snooze, and I'll just dismiss this, and so that's just a small sample of what it does.
Crazy. But you can actually understand what it's saying to you right now.
Oh yeah.
That's wild, because I don't know if you guys could actually hear it, but I'm going to try and mimic the way it sounds to me, right? As someone who's, I guess I'm not used to that, but it literally sounds like that's how fast it sounds.
Yeah.
And you can actually fully understand that. So I want to understand that a little bit more, because obviously you work with computers and you've been sort of around technology for, it sounds like for a long time in your life. So you've gotten used to it. But before we get into that, actually, can you break down your visual impairment? Can you break down how your visual impairment actually came about? Because you mentioned you're fully blind now, but I believe in the car you mentioned that earlier you had like partial visibility.
Yeah. So I have a condition called Peter's anomaly. I also have glaucoma. Peter's anomaly is a condition where the front of the eye doesn't develop well prior to birth. And so when I was born, I had sort of cloudy vision and a defective cornea. And I had about 11 or 12 surgeries over the first 3 years of my life. And they tried to cure it, but they weren't able to. And eventually I lost the retina in my right eye. And they weren't able to cure the left eye completely. But for the first, let's say, 26 years of my life, I did have some vision, so I was able to see colors, read very large print, like up to maybe 30 times, and eventually I lost my vision. It just deteriorated, and now there's nothing I can do to get it back. So I've just learned to live life like that.
Wow.
And I use a white cane when I travel, so
yeah,
that's how I get around.
Got it. So was this a genetic disorder, or was it more like it just happened by chance? Like how did it actually form?
Pretty much by chance. I don't know anyone else about my family who had vision issues, so I can't really say for sure, but I believe it's just by chance.
Got it. Very interesting. So before you had slight vision, and then over the last couple of years, it sounds like is when it completely went away.
About 10 years ago, like 2012, 2013, is when it completely went away. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a big deal for me. I had already kind of lived, assuming I had no vision, because even my personal vision, it didn't help me much. I mean, it helped me, at least I got a chance to see colors and things like that at some point. So I kind of had an idea of when people talk about different colors, like I can visualize in my head what that looks like. But even back then, I wasn't able to do everything that like a sighted person can, like drive. So
yeah,
it doesn't make a difference to me losing it completely.
Got it. I wanna take it back a bit, because I wanna get to the day-to-day challenges that you face, and sort of talk about things like the medical industry. Is there a potential cure? I'm also curious about, for example, like technological advancements, AI, VR. Like, are there certain technologies that are potentially gonna be able to help you achieve your vision again? But before we get to all that, I want to take it back, to your upbringing and your childhood, if you're comfortable talking about that, because when I look back at my childhood and I reflect on, how I grew up, I was, my parents. I mean, I've been very blessed to be around amazing people, and I was always loved and cared for. But, when I look back on my childhood, I'll get vulnerable. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm just now as a 28-year-old starting to understand, like, certain traumas I went through, watching my parents and sort of the way that they were together and how, their confrontations and arguments impacted me and have left, an impact on me, and how I've now had to unpack all these things. I went through my childhood, obviously being able to see completely. And, I think you were on sort of the other side of the spectrum where you had to deal with the exact same circumstances of growing up in a world that's, very difficult. And luckily you also have beautiful, amazing parents, but, you did have this, extra hurdle, I guess, that you had to deal with as a child. So can you walk me through your childhood and your upbringing and how, having your visual impairment kind of affected that?
I mean, so I'm grateful to have wonderful parents and a sister who helped me along the way. I mean, they were always there to help me and make sure I had what I needed. It was challenging in that at home it wasn't a problem, but once I learned to navigate the house when I was young, it wasn't an issue getting around. But at school is like my early years of school is where I had challenges, because obviously I was in an environment with sighted kids, and they didn't really, they couldn't understand what I was going through. So a lot of times I would get bullied and things like that. But I mean, I dealt with it just like any other kid would. I just ignored it and went about my business. But my parents were always helpful. They never put me down. A lot of people who don't have experience with people with disabilities will often try to talk down to you or make you feel crippled. That never happened to me. They always pushed me to do my very best, and I'm thankful to them for that. To get that got me to where I am today. And so that's kind of how I grew up. I mean, I've had, I've heard my parents argue and confront each other all the time, but it's no different than what any other couple would do, and I do that all the time with my wife. So that's
yeah, a very normal part of a relationship.
Yeah,
100%. I want to understand how the schooling system was for you. Given what you were dealing with, do you feel like the schools that you went to, high school, college, like, were they accommodating for you? Did they have enough sort of resources for you to use in order to feel comfortable, safe? Do you feel like there was any? Yeah, can you kind of break that down? Like, I guess in retrospect, were there also any things of the schooling system that you feel like could have been improved given your circumstances?
Yeah. So for the first few years of my life, elementary school, I was in a school full of other blind students. So
yeah,
it was easy to get along with them, and they had teachers that were trained to work with students with visual disabilities. So that was good because I made friends, and it was easy to get along. We all had the same issues, so there wasn't really any issue interacting because everyone was going through the same thing. When I went, I think it was starting in the 5th grade, the school that I was at kind of felt that I was too advanced for them. So they pushed me out, and then I went to a different elementary school where most of the kids were sighted. They did have some blind students, but there were only like 4 or 5. They did have what they called a resource room where you would go to do your work. They had talking computers and things like that, so you can sit and do your homework or get help from a teacher who was specialized in assisting the visually impaired. So like one of the most challenging subjects for me was mathematics. geometry and trigonometry, things like that, because all that stuff is visual. It's all shapes. And
Right.
so I used to get help from the teachers to do my homework, to measure things and help me understand how to do that. So
Yeah.
that was, I dealt with that for, I think it was 5th grade through all the way through high school. I had that type of setup. College, I was pretty much on my own. I mean, they did have a disabled student center in college. It was basically an office where you would go to get any request any accommodations you needed. For example, if I needed math books in Braille, I am a Braille reader, so they would provide those. The problem that I was facing there was a lot of times they wouldn't have the professors wouldn't have the syllabus ready until like 2 weeks before the class began. And to get books in Braille, it takes time because they have to transcribe them. So they have to rely on on a vendor outside of the college to do that. And it takes a few months to get that done. So I was often behind the rest of the students in the class because I didn't have access to the material that they had access to. So, I mean, they tried their best, and sometimes they got it to me on time and sometimes they didn't. For simple subjects like English or, some parts of computer science, which is what I majored in, they gave me the books electronically in like a Word or PDF format. So I was able to read them on the computer with a screen reader. So that's how I got through that. But yeah, they tried to accommodate as much as they could.
That's really interesting. I honestly, I didn't expect you to say that, but it sounds like they were super accommodating, which is great. And I went to USC, so I was actually around some people that had visual impairments, and I honestly, from my perspective, felt like they were sort of taken care of and prioritized, and given the resources that they needed. And I sort of got the same perspective or feedback from them. So it's great to hear that from you. I do want to go back to the bullying piece though, because you did mention that there was some bullying that you had to endure. And I mean, again, I'll be vulnerable. I was bullied as well in middle school and high school for being Indian. And it got to a point where people were, I had someone make a Facebook page called Osama bin Laden, and they put my profile picture as like it's really messed up. I was actually in a video called "If You've Ever Been Bullied, You're Not Alone." Go check it out on BuzzFeed. It's a real thing. But I got over it, and now I'm friends with all of them, so it's fine. But I want to hear about your bullying, because you said that you just ignored it. And if you don't mind me asking, did it ever get to a point where it was affecting you? Like, did you ever feel sort of down about yourself because of what you had to endure and face at the time?
I mean, there were days when I kind of did, but it would that would last only a few minutes, and after I left the school, I was pretty much okay. I pretty much learned to put up with it because I knew it was, a temporary thing.
Yeah.
Luckily I didn't have a situation where it was so bad that I had to like report them to the principal or anything, but it was just random. Like at lunchtime, people would come and make derogatory comments and make fun of me and things like that. But I just went about my business. Oftentimes I just used to leave the lunch area and go start doing my homework, because the teachers allowed people to use the resource room during lunchtime. So I tried to get away from it, and I think that helped.
Yeah. It's funny. I did a similar thing. I would go into the library and just read and kind of get away. And I think that's always the best approach, bro. I think, maybe there's someone that's watching this that's been experiencing bullying. I think, first off, you got to find a community, right? Like, especially me now as an adult, and, I'm sure you do the same thing. Like, you have to find communities. I go to church, in my business, I have a community and whatnot. And I think as a kid, sometimes there is no community because, let's be honest, kids can be pretty aggressive and rude and mean. And so I think sometimes, man, you just got to walk away and approach it with love. And it sounds like you handled, the bullying really, really well, which is awesome. So fast forward from, middle school and high school, can you walk me through your college experience and sort of like, how that process looked like? And then also, how did you start getting into computers and technology? Like, where did that initial curiosity come from?
So my dad was a software engineer, and I think it was in the early '90s. When I had some vision, I started playing computer games.
Mm.
This was before computers could even talk, but
Yeah.
and so I this one day I went to a conference with my dad, and I saw all of this technology, like screen readers and different hardware devices for people with disabilities, and I was just, I guess, amazed at, because it made me realize, well, hey, I can do my homework on my own. I don't have to rely on other people. And so in 1996, I got my first talking computer. It was an old 486 PC running DOS and like Windows 3.1 at the time, and at that time the whole system, including the speech synthesizer and the screen reader and all that, it was like $10,000. It was really expensive.
Oh wow.
But that opened a lot of doors for me because I was able to do my homework. I used to use WordPerfect at the time, which is a word processor that used to exist back then. And then I think it was end of '96, I got first internet connection with AOL, and that I used to, I joined a bunch of mailing lists for that were, they were supporting the blindness community to discuss different issues and get help with technology and things like that. So I started making friends with people around the world, and it allowed me to actually do research online. I used to use the Encyclopedia Britannica at the time to do a lot of my schoolwork.
Yeah.
So that independence started to come about in the late '90s, and that's when I realized that this is a pretty fascinating field. I actually want to get into computer science and start making software on my own. And so that's why I decided to major in that in college.
Yeah.
And since then, I graduated from college too with a degree in software engineering. But then this new field called accessibility started to come about, and there were actually jobs coming about where companies were hiring specialists to help make their apps accessible to people with disabilities. So I actually didn't end up as a developer as I thought I would, but I still ended up in a field that I enjoy working, which is still in the IT field, but is allowing me to make a difference and enable other people to have access to products and services. So
yeah. That's so cool, man. You get to like be an actual part of the technology that actually helps you. So, who better to kind of optimize these things than someone that's actually using them themselves, right? Like, I think it makes a lot of sense that you're in that accessibility space. But what you said kind of reminds me of Neuralink a little bit, if you're familiar. Like, I know with quadriplegics. Yeah. So I'm curious, with something like Neuralink, where to my understanding, it's people that have, for example, like, they're quadriplegics or they have certain other disabilities, they can't use technology. If they get the Neuralink implanted, they can then start to use these technologies. I don't even know if I said that right, but yeah, what are your thoughts on Neuralink, and would you get it if you had the opportunity?
It really depends. I mean, if the government pays for it, then obviously probably, but it really depends on how. I'd have to talk to my doctor about it because I don't know much about it myself. I mean, he's promised to, Elon has promised to cure blindness, but there's different types of blindness, so many different types of conditions that I don't know if it would actually work in my situation. So I mean, even if it was 50 grand, in my case, if I was told that it was going to work 100%, then yeah, I'd get it. But there's still a lot of research I still need to do on it.
Yeah. I don't think I would get it, bro. I think I would be so terrified to like have an actual chip. Like, I'm terrified of taking just any medication, like let alone like Pepto-Bismol, for example, or like Tums. Like, I don't even like taking those because I'm a firm believer in, health and wellness through a traditional medicine, like, or I guess untraditional medicine of like, health and supplements, or like just, training, lifestyle. But let alone like someone putting a chip into my brain, like that to me is like terrifying. So respect to you for even being open to it. I I wanna switch gears a little bit, and I want to go back to what you were saying about sort of like your day-to-day life. Um, can you walk me through like some of the biggest challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis, given your visual impairment?
Um, so, um, traveling is one of the biggest things. Obviously, when you, I mean, it's for someone sighted, it's easy. Just get in a car and go wherever you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
I have to deal with the challenge of, well, first of all, if I'm not going to use rideshare service like Uber or Lyft, which this stuff is still new. It's only 12 years old. They
Yeah.
didn't exist in the early 2000s, and so at that time I didn't really have a choice. I had to rely on someone to drive me wherever I needed to go. So
Right.
if I didn't have a family member or a friend who could do that, then I was pretty much stuck. Unless I wanted to pay for a taxi, which they were really expensive.
Right.
But that even now is still a challenge, because sometimes with Uber or Lyft surge pricing, you still pay a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was young, I learned how to travel using the public city buses, and that's an option. Problem is, it takes a long time. Like to get from Cypress to Costa Mesa, it would take hours, just because you have to transfer buses, and so you would have to wait. And sometimes the buses show up late and things like that, so it's a drag.
Yeah.
But if I have to do it, I would. I mean, there were cases where I used to go to college on city bus, so I can do it, but it just takes up a lot of my time. Another area is, access to electronic information and even printed materials. So, like when I get my mail,
Yeah.
I either have to rely on someone to read it to me. Well, luckily, this is where AI has really become a game changer in the past 4 or 5 years. Like there are now apps on the iPhone, like Seeing AI or Envision or SuperSense, that will actually, as you point your phone's camera to something, it will instantly read the text to you. And so that really allows me to be independent without relying on anyone else. The problem is, for complex documents, like things that have tables or maps or multiple column layouts like a newspaper,
Yeah.
it still gets confused, and so it's not totally accurate, and sometimes it just reads a bunch of gibberish. So that's still a challenge. You know, hopefully they will figure that out, but
Yeah.
that probably is the biggest thing, is making sure that we have access to information. And there's still a lot of software out there that is totally inaccessible. So sometimes if you're in a work environment, they won't let you use AI, for example. So you can't use tools on your work computer to try to get around some of those obstacles, and so you have to rely on a sighted colleague to help you with some of those tasks. But those are the biggest areas for me, I would say.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. What about other areas? Things like eating, running, walking, working out. Like, are there a lot of challenges in those areas for you as well?
Well, running is a challenge, yes, because you can't just go running down the street like anyone else, because you have to make sure that you're not going to bump into cars and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the best I can do is walk. I have to use my white cane to feel around and navigate around obstacles that are in the way.
Yeah.
I can't do that while running, so yeah, I don't do that much. But walking is, as long as this area is pretty accessible and has sidewalks and the roads are not very busy, it is pretty easy.
Yeah.
I've learned even in busy areas how to cross the street. So like at a busy intersection, I can still tell by, for example, if I'm crossing the street and there's traffic to my right, like if I'm crossing straight and there's a street to my right, I usually can tell that I have to go once the surge of cars starts going straight on my right. That's how I know. It would be the opposite if the street were on my left and I was crossing straight. When the cars that are right on my left side start going straight, that's when I'd cross.
Yeah.
It gets more complicated at like 6-way intersections and things like that, but for a simple 4-way, it's pretty easy.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. That makes sense. Now, what about when it comes to what was I going to ask? I guess when it comes to like working out, for example, like are you able to, do you still go to the gym and use like a normal facility?
No, so a lot of the I don't go to a gym just because a lot of the machines there, like treadmills and things, are not accessible. So
Yeah.
you can't really read the screen and see what's going on.
Right.
But I do have that's why I have an exercise bike at home. It's just a manual bike. So I use that for like an hour every day. But the Apple Watch has been a game changer because that will let me track my heart rate, my calories, and
Yeah.
my overall health. And that is accessible because it has the voiceover screen reader built in, just like my phone does. So I can do that. Eating is kind of a challenge too. You had mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes, depending on what type of food you're eating, it can be hard to figure out whether you need a spoon or a fork. And when it comes to things like sushi, like I've never eaten with chopsticks before, so
Yeah.
I still need to learn how to do that. But
Yeah. Real quick on the sushi thing, I'm so sorry to cut you off. I have to say this. I just went to a restaurant called Uchi in West Hollywood, and I got the omakase, which is like the unlimited sushi, and I got food poisoning. And bro, for the last 4 days, I've been vomiting. I'm better now, and it's not contagious, so you're good. But the last 4 days, I've been throwing up like crazy, and like I had a high fever, like 102, 103. So just you mentioned sushi, and it immediately like sparked the trauma that I've been dealing with. But never go to Uchi. If you're watching this, don't ever go to Uchi. Terrible place. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm alive.
But yeah, when it comes to eating, I mean that's the main challenge is just figuring out when you need what type of utensils. So
Got it. What about when it comes to sleep, like and waking up in the morning? The reason I asked that in particular is I'm very interested in health and wellness and biohacking and trying to be, optimized as a human being. And part of that is, getting obviously the 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And then in the morning, I like sun exposure. Like I think a little bit of grounding, touching the earth, looking, just underneath the sun, getting the circadian rhythm going is very crucial. So I'm curious, how does your sleep routine look like? And then in the morning with sunlight, how does that work as well? Like, are you still able to feel the sun or, see the sunlight? Can you break that down for me?
I can feel the sun when it's pretty hot or pretty warm. Sometimes in the morning it's kind of difficult. You usually start feeling it like in the late morning or the mid-afternoon when it's warmer, but the sunlight doesn't really affect my sleep. So, I'm able to sleep just fine like anyone else. I usually sleep around 11 p.m. and I wake up at 7 a.m. on the weekdays and 9 a.m. on the weekends. 9 a.m. on the weekends. So, not really an issue for me. I know there are a lot of people who are blind who have what's called, I think they call it like non-24 sleep disorder or something like that, where the sunlight, they do get affected by the sunlight, but not really an issue for me.
Got it. And what about when it comes to eye care? Like are there certain like things you have to do before you sleep or during the day? For example, like if you're walking in a dusty area and the dust maybe gets in your face, like are there certain things that you use that help you?
No, so I used to take eye drops, but to control the pressure of my eyes, but I haven't been doing that the past few years. It's because the doctor had said I can stop them because they weren't really helping me, but I do have to go for pressure checkups every once in a while to make sure the pressure isn't too high. But on a day-to-day basis, I do sometimes have to clean my eyes. Like I go to the restroom sometimes to clean my eyes just because I get the discharge that builds up. So that has to be cleaned because it makes me uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
other than that, it's fine. Don't really have any other issue.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just curious. What about when it comes to, you know, a cure, medical advancements? Like I remember watching a YouTube video. I don't remember who exactly it was, but it was like a video of this lady, getting eye surgery. She got new eyes, and there was a statistic that I read that says, I forget the exact number, but there's a certain percentage of, blindness cases that are actually curable, but for some reason doctors are withholding, these surgeries for X, Y, and Z reason, just to, maybe monetize on the medications that, they're prescribing. Like, what's your viewpoint on the medical system when it comes to blindness? And is there a potential cure? You mentioned Elon. Like, how do you look at all that?
And well, in my case, there is currently no cure just because the cornea has become damaged and I don't have a retina in my right eye at all.
Got it.
So there's nothing they can really do. I mean, the only thing that may work is something like Neuralink, or some other similar technology that comes out, but not really sure whether it would. I would have to kind of find out from my eye doctor as to whether that would be viable for me or not. But in terms of doctors withholding surgeries, I have heard of cases like that, but it's probably related to some other condition that she may have had, because I think it's going to be different for everyone. Depending on what specific condition you have. I don't think there's going to be the same. Same doesn't apply to everybody. So,
got it.
If they told her that her condition is curable and they're withholding surgery, that's pretty bad.
Right. But maybe there's other complications due to other conditions she might have, so they maybe can't administer certain medications. Got it. That makes sense. Going into this interview, dude, I'll be honest with you. I didn't want to come across as insensitive when I was asking these questions. And we obviously had a conversation before and you said it was okay. And, I'm glad we're having this fluid convo. But are there ever questions that you're asked maybe by public, and by strangers in public, or just by anybody, by family members, friends, that annoy you? Like, are there questions that ever rub you the wrong way that, you're like, this is such a dumb question, or you feel, like you feel saddened? Like, can you break that down?
I haven't been asked anything strange by family members really, but I mean, on the street when you're walking, sometimes this random person will come up to you and just ask you silly questions like, how do you read a book, or how do you, which, I mean, I get where they're coming from, but sometimes it's just common sense. Like, I can listen to audiobooks, like, it's, and the thing that annoys me the most though is when people come up to you and you're stopped at an intersection because it's not your turn to go, and sometimes they'll just grab your arm and drag you across the street, and it's like, I don't appreciate that. Like, I can do this myself. If I appreciate the help, but I want you to ask me if I need help, and if I say no, then leave me alone. But you should ask me first before just trying to grab my arm.
Right. Yeah, that is kind of weird. If someone just walked up to me and tried to pull me across the street, I'd probably smack them across the face. Like, but I think some people have good intentions, but they're maybe just, again, uneducated. They don't know how to address it, right? But like you're saying, I'm a human. I have done this before. I'm standing at an intersection for a reason. Like, if I need help, I'll vocalize it. Like, you have a voice. So that makes sense. Yeah, I was just curious. I feel like one of the dumb questions that I maybe did ask you in the car was about movies and television, because I always wondered, like, if you go to a movie theater or you're at home, like, how does that work? But you explained to me that these platforms or in the movie theater, they usually have some sort of headset that you can listen to, and they actually break down the visuals of what's happening on screen.
Yeah, so in movie theaters, a lot of the movies do have audio description, which is basically um, an optional separate track that's layered on top of the movie.
Mm.
It has narration that describes all of the important visual details that are taking place, and so
Yeah.
I would listen to that through a headset and follow along with the movie, just like everyone else's. But at home, I can, like on my phone or my computer or Apple TV, I can. There's an option in there for audio description. So if I'm watching Netflix and the movie does support audio description, I can turn that on and follow along with the rest of my family. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so cool, man. I feel like we're living in such a great time, right? Where the technology is advancing. Like this is the technological revolution. And so I think it's awesome that you're able to experience, all these great things and that technology is where it's at. So that's really awesome. I want to like dig deeper, if you're comfortable with it. I want to understand, as a man, I'll tell you this, right? For myself, being a 28-year-old, over the last 12 months, I'd say is when I really started getting really deep in my faith in Christ and getting more spiritual and reading the Bible. And, that came about from an event of suffering and pain, which was, I mentioned it before, but my mom got a, double lung transplant. And that sort of opened my eyes to what really matters on this world, which is the people and the relationships that we have and bringing glory to God through the things that we do and, the power of our tongue and our actions. And so, faith has been a really big, part of my life. But I was curious for you, has faith been, a pivotal, thing for you in your life? Like, are you into religion and spirituality, or is that maybe not so significant for you?
Yeah. I mean, I pray on a daily basis. I do it in the morning, right after I work. I take a shower. I come out and pray for a few minutes before I start work.
Yeah.
I've gone through a lot of challenges in life, and I have my mother had a liver transplant as well, and she came out of that, and so
Yeah.
I'm just grateful to God that He's brought me to where I am today, and the rest of my family. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's religion is important.
I love that, man. I love that. Yeah. And when you say you pray, can I ask like what your prayer looks like? Like, do you address a certain God? Like, is it more, open ended? Do you identify to a certain religion?
Well, I'm Hindu,
Okay.
um, but I generally pray to. We have a different bunch of different gods, but
Yeah.
I just say my prayers to God in general, meaning to all of them. I don't
Yeah.
you know prescribe to certain one.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. I visited the Bible before coming to our podcast because I was curious. I'm Christian. I'm also, I guess, Hindu, and I'm still trying to sort of dissect or identify where I stand. But right now I'm reading the Bible, and Isaiah 42:16 says, "And I will bring the blind by a way that they knew not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things will I do unto them and not forsake them." And I did a little more research, and I guess the summary of that verse is that God will guide people on their paths, and that God's plans for the future are good. And it can be interpreted as a promise from God to lead people when they feel too blind to go at this journey alone. And so I was just curious, like, has relying on God and prayer been an impactful reason, or maybe it's not, but has it been a reason that you've been able to stay so positive? Because I feel like every time I'm with you, you're positive, you're happy, you're laughing. Are you able to maintain that frame of mind most of the time, would you say?
I mean, most of the time, yeah. There's we all have challenges with our families, and there's a lot of politics at work that you have to deal with. But yeah, I mean, I wake up every day, looking at it as an opportunity to do your very best, and I think God has helped me through that so far. So yeah.
I love it, man. Yeah, they say the today's a gift from God. That's why they call it the present.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I want to switch gears. I was reading Genesis 1 through 17, just sort of that's the part of the Bible that breaks down how the world came about and how God made everything. And when he made Adam, he made Eve through by taking a rib out of Adam, and he made Eve, and then Adam was able to reproduce, and humans came onto the earth, et cetera, et cetera. And I know you have a beautiful wife who you've been married to, I think, for 10 years now. I was just wondering, like, how big of a role or significant of a role she's played in your journey thus far, and sort of how that's been, I guess, if you're able to talk about it.
Yeah, so she's been a great wife. Has been there by my side throughout these past 10 years, and we do a lot of things together. We go out different places, and she's been great keeping me company when we go to things like the movies or the mall or theme parks and things like that. So and it's a great compliment that she describes things to me, tells me when things are in my way, that sort of thing. So that kind of she helps me understand what's going on in the world, and is just there to make sure that I'm okay. So I'm grateful to her for that.
I love that. That's so beautiful, man. Like it's so important to have a backbone as a man, and as a woman to have a man to guide and lead you and whatnot. So I think that's really beautiful, man. That's so awesome. And I also think, like, trust, for me and for anybody, I think trust is, like, for me, it's one of my core values. Like, if I can't trust you, there's nothing there. And I would assume that, given sort of the things that you have to, deal with every day, like, trust is probably a very important part of your relationships, right? So, like, I guess given your circumstances, has it been harder for you to trust people? Like, does trust come easy to you?
Well, I've had some friends that I haven't been able to trust in the past, but overall, with friends and colleagues and family members I interact with on a daily basis, I feel I can trust them. But there have been some kind of shady people in the past that it's kind of been difficult to trust. But it's same with everybody, I guess.
Yeah, you gotta. I think I just like to give people the benefit of the doubt at first, and like just assuming that everyone is good and God made us, as good humans to bring light to Him, and then if they do something to break your trust, then then you make a decision. Yeah. I want to switch gears, bro, because you mentioned in the car that you love roller coasters, and I told you I hate roller coasters. Completely switching gears from trust, but you mentioned you want to go skydiving, and so I'm getting the vibe that you love adrenaline. Like, where does that come from? Like have you always been an adrenaline junkie?
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
No, I love roller coasters. I want to go skydiving. I guess I don't have that fear of heights just because I don't know what's there. I just went to Not Scary Farm the other day, and Sonia, my wife, was getting scared like crazy, but for me, it wasn't a big deal. I was laughing. So
that's crazy. Is it? I mean, it's because but you can still feel like the pressure, right? Like, for example, Accelerator is super fast. Like Ghost Rider, I throw up every time I go on that ride.
Yeah, and at Disneyland, you go on like Tower of Terror. I put my hands up like when the thing drops. I love it.
Dude, I hate those, bro. Like the ones that spin, especially like the teacups at Disneyland. Those are the worst ones, bro. Those ones, and then the things that like drop. Like, oh my God, I don't get how you do it, but hey, respect, bro. That's impressive. Very interesting. I forgot to ask you this earlier, and I'm curious. You mentioned that before, and I know we're going all over the place, and I'm so sorry, but it's just I have ADHD. Okay, cool. Yeah, I have ADHD, so it happens sometimes. But you mentioned that before you were able to see, for example, colors and like bigger objects. So I wanted to ask you, like, do you know what your family looks like? Like, were you able to see them before?
So I could see their faces, but I couldn't really tell the differences in faces unless they had like darker or lighter skin. But that's all I could see. I couldn't really tell the fine details about how they differed. And then I could see the different colors of the clothes they were wearing and like the skin on their arms and things like that. Like major things that stood out, but like being able to distinguish them in like a picture or something, I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah. But could you see their facial features? Like, could you see the eyes and the nose and the ears?
No, that I'd have to get really up close for that. I couldn't do that from even a few feet away.
Got it. So back when you did have a little bit of visibility, were you able to do that? Like, did you get close to them and kind of see what they look like? Like, I guess in detail.
No, I guess I actually I didn't do that. I kind of know at a general level what they look like,
Yeah.
but I didn't get super close to be able to see their eyes. No.
Yeah. Got it. There's also this, I think, just general like statement about people that lack in one sense have extremely strong senses in other areas. So is there validity to that? Like, given you can't see, like, is your smell really strong? Your hearing is obviously really strong because you can hear it 100x on that on your watch, which is crazy to me. And I just saw angel numbers again. It's 333. It's happening every day. Anyways, so yeah, how are your other senses impacted, if at all?
Well, I don't think my hearing is better than anyone else's, but I can't really say. I mean, I rely on it now because I can't see, so I have to rely on hearing pretty much all of the time, as well as being able to feel with my fingers. So I would say those are pretty strong, as well as my sense of smell. But I don't know if I can say it's better than or worse than anyone else's.
Got it. Which one's your favorite sense? For me, it's smell. I think I like to smell stuff, like especially like desserts and stuff. Since I don't eat it, I get to smell it and I enjoy that. Do you have a favorite sense, I guess?
I mean, I like smell too, but probably for me, it's being able to feel. Just so I can feel different things, and I read Braille, and so that is pretty much the equivalent of someone reading a book in print. Like, I can listen to a book, but I'm not going to improve my spelling and my vocabulary really that way. It's like taking your eyes to a book. That's Braille is pretty much the equivalent of that, being able to read with your fingers.
Yeah. Got it. How was it easy to learn Braille? Like, was that a pretty quick process for you?
It took a couple of years for me, but for me it was easy because I learned it in preschool at a very young age. It for a lot of people who lose their sight later in life, I've heard it's kind of difficult and takes them a long time. But I grew up with it, so
Yeah. Got it. And typically, like in like public facilities, like they have Braille. Like I know on the restrooms, for example, or like in schools, they have it. Like, would you say in most public areas that people frequent, like they have Braille?
Most places, yeah. There are some like you'll find it in restrooms. A lot of restaurants have Braille menus if you ask for them now.
Oh, wow.
And elevators have them. So all over the place, there are some buildings, older buildings that still don't, that have not been renovated yet to comply with the ADA. But so those won't have it. But most places these days do, like even hotels, with the room numbers and things like that. Yeah.
Got it. That's good, man. I was just curious if they had those. I was also wondering, one thing that I struggle with, getting vulnerable yet again, is anxiety. And I've started realizing that anxiety is just, in my mind, God rewiring my body for this new journey that I'm on, which is trying to understand why we're here. What are we doing? What's the purpose, etc. So I actually look at my anxiety as sort of like a spiritual cleansing. But before, I had anxiety to where I was getting panic attacks, and my heart rate was going crazy. Like you feel out of body at certain times. And I think actually a lot of it stemmed from caffeine, which I'm drinking caffeine right now, which I probably shouldn't. But I was curious if you struggle with anxiety at all, and if you do, sort of how you deal with that.
No, I guess I don't.
That's great.
I probably was, feeling it more like when I used to get scared and nervous all the time when my mom was dealing with her medical issues, but
Right.
because I was just scared about what would happen at the time of her surgery. But
Yeah.
other than that, no, not really.
Got it. That's great. It's so interesting. I talk to a lot of people and I feel like it's like 50-50. Like 5 out of 10 people that I talk to will say, I don't have any anxiety at all. And it's like, that's great. I mean, I'm very envious, but that's great. I'm glad your mom is better, man. Jyoti Masi is an amazing person. And I think you and I have that in common. Like we've both seen our parents, our mothers specifically, which is the reason we're here. I mean, we literally came out of our moms, like, so to see them go through medical issues and survive and be existing and living and prospering is so beautiful. So I'm very happy that your mom is doing well, sincerely.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I want to end with some rapid fire questions, super random. And honestly, I don't even have any written down, but I'm going to come up with them right now. If you had any superpower, what would it be?
Probably probably make the entire world go blind for a few days just to see what they.
Dang, dude, that was a great answer. I thought you were gonna say like teleporting or like something like that. But dude, that's so interesting. Why do you say that? Is it like you genuinely want people to experience?
Yeah, I think it would. A lot of people. There's still a lot of people out there who have never been exposed to someone with a disability. So just for them to experience it for a few days and learn to adapt and so that they can get along with people better. That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no malicious intent or intent to harm anyone. It's just for a few days.
Yeah, and then to go back to be okay, that makes sense. It's kind of like me. Like I want to go to jail for a couple days and then come out of jail just to like experience it. You know what I'm saying? Actually, maybe not. I'm gonna knock on wood for that one. Do you? I have to go deeper into that because you answered with such a good answer. Do you think has it been harder for you to make friends because of what you're dealing with? Like, do you feel like people maybe don't look at you normally or like treat you normally because of it? Or maybe they do. Like, how has your social experience been living as a, citizen of society? Like, how has that been impacted?
It really depends on the group of people you're with. Like, if I go to a party and there are other people there with a disability, then it's easier, just because they are going through the same things you're going through. But a lot of times, it's just kind of difficult because you show up at a party full of sighted folks and they're doing their own thing, and you kind of feel like, I'm getting in the way when I move around, and then it's kind of hard to. Obviously, I can't make eye contact with someone, and so it's not as easy to say hello unless I butt into their conversation. So that's a bit of a challenge, but like if someone comes up to me and gets my attention, then I can continue a conversation with them after that. That's not an issue, but just the initial getting to know someone, it can be difficult depending on who you're with.
Right. And do you sort of wish that people would approach you more? And do you feel like people are hesitant to approach you at certain times because they don't know how? Like,
I wish they would. Yeah, I think it's just they hesitate because they're either afraid of someone who is blind. They don't know how to interact with them or talk to them. But I mean, I wish they would, because we're human just like anyone else. I mean, I don't consider my disability to be a hurdle or anything like that. That's part of who I am, and I learned to deal with it. But I don't, sit there depressed the entire day because of it. So I just do things a little bit differently. That's all. But I wish people would do that more.
Yeah. I feel you, man. So I think there is just like maybe a general misunderstanding of like, people like yourself, like how you are dealing with things. There's no difference. Like you've learned to deal with it. You've been going through it for a long time, and you're a normal, cool dude that like I think a lot of people would really benefit from speaking to. So I agree with that. But I've realized, bro, like even with myself, like people don't really approach me day to day. Like I feel like I'm always the person that sort of has to make the effort. And I've come to realize that I think it's because a lot of people are stuck in their head, bro. Like I think, no shade to anyone, because I was that person too, and I still am at certain times. Like people are, dealing with their internal dialogues. Maybe they're very busy. Like I think where I live in LA, there's the issue of the ego mind. Everyone's stuck in their ego and wants to, they think they're celebrity or whatever. But what I've realized is you can just be the person to initiate. Like if I'm in an elevator, bro, I'm talking 100 out of 100 times. Like I don't care who it is, if it's a kid, if it's a grandpa, like I'm saying something. And that has been super life-changing for me, because you just see the other person switch open and they just like light up, Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that can be tricky too, because depending on where you are, like if you're walking into an office building, you don't know if sometimes it's so quiet you don't know if anyone else is actually there. So.
Oh, I see. Right. Got it. Yeah. So I guess that does make it difficult. Can you feel people's presence like strongly, like, if they're close to you or if maybe they're further away? Like if it's a quiet room, is it truly like difficult to understand if there are people around?
It just depends on the acoustics, I guess. Like if it's a huge area like we're in now, it can be, but if it's a smaller room, like the sound changes depending on where the person is in the room, so sometimes you can sort of tell.
Got it.
So yeah, it just depends.
Got it. Very interesting. Is there any like advice or things that you want to leave people with that are watching, like, I guess, yeah, any advice or like last words that you want to say that you think they could maybe benefit from hearing?
Oh no, I mean, I appreciate you having me here to give my perspective. I hope people have learned something today, and they can feel free to reach out to me too if they have any questions. I'd be happy to talk to people and make new friends. In terms of advice, I would say just if you encounter someone like myself in your daily life, just talk to them like they're your regular friend. That's it.
Yeah. Well said, man. I'm so grateful, dude, honestly. So, thank you so much for coming on. This has been super, super educating for me. Like, I feel like now I definitely understand to a better degree, sort of the things that you're dealing with and how you kind of go about your day and whatnot. So thank you. And I definitely want to do a part 2 because my ADHD is going crazy right now. Because from that, shout out this energy drink, whatever that is great for a workout. You know what I'm saying? I'm not working out right now, but I'm wired. I've only had half of it. But I do want to do a part 2 at some point. I think that would be great, just to kind of get a little bit deeper. But I think this was a great conversation, and again, I'm very grateful that you decided to come on. So thank you so much. I'm going to put Chethan's information down in the description if you guys want to reach out to him. Definitely do that. He's a great guy. Love him. And make sure you guys leave a review. Let us know what you think. Any feedback, positive or negative, drop it down below. I want to get it all so I can improve these episodes and bring you just the best content possible. And stay tuned for another great episode coming next week. Very excited for that guest. Can't tell you who it is, but it's going to be really fun. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next episode of the Divij podcast, episode 111 in the books. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.